Hey folks, Matt Sharp here with another Pacific Angler Friday fishing report. We're filming for July 18th, so if it's nowhere near July 18th, click up here. This is a link to all the Friday fishing reports. We should have something more up to date for you. This week is going to be a short one. Yes, Tom, I promise this time I'm not going to go rambling. However, I do want to talk about three of our favorite fisheries. We're going to be looking at the Chilliwack because we're getting good reports. It is getting a little lower than we'd like to see it this early in the season, and we are having some ethical fishing issues that we seem to have every year. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir when I talk to you all about it, but we're going to talk about it because it might pose opportunities for you to help educate some of those that may not be as into fishing or as attuned to the politics that are really important to make sure we can keep fishing. Now, we're also going to talk about saltwater fishing. Why? It's hilarious. It's still excellent, and we have opportunity now to target Chinook. I'm going to throw up the map and we can talk about where that is and what your slot limit is for targeting Chinook. But then we're also going to talk about the coho because we are catching them on hilarious methods. And I wanted to talk through that with you because it's well worth getting out with the family, and we expect this to continue right through into August. So that's exciting times, and we are blessed. Last but not least, we are going to talk about the trout fishing. I was just up, went up for a few days, had excellent fishing on a number of the systems, and I wanted to talk that through with you. If you're planning a trip that way, you'll want to tune in. I've got some updates, I've got some good news, I've got some caveats, I've got some things that you might want to consider if you're heading out there to make sure you're in the game. As always, you want to see more reports like this, consider hitting the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's get into it. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Cheers to Friday. Drinking a glass of red wine right now. Taking it easy on the beers. We've had a few too many over the last little bit, so I've switched to one glass of wine a night, and it is lovely. However, we don't want to hear about my drinking habits. Let's look at the weather. We're in for more of the same. Might be some clouds, might be a little bit of precipitation next weekend. However, we're going to see pretty solid 25s, mid 20s right through this week. And when we look out to the 14-day trend, we're going to see, pretty similar. They've changed the weather network on me. We might be seeing stuff next Thursday on the 25th where we get a little bit of precipitation. And quite honestly, as much as I hate rain as a Vancouverite, that could be a good thing. Dampen things down, keep those forests a little bit damp for forest fires, as well as keep those rivers at maybe a more sustainable level. So that's a good report. Definitely good for this weekend. More beautiful weather coming. So get out there. Now, the first thing we were going to yak about was the Chilliwack. Now, a lot of people going out. That's great. Get out fishing, enjoy it. However, we have heard the standard reports of folks in areas using lengthened leaders, specifically not trying to hook fish, but to snag them. I don't know how to deal with this. I've been ranting about it for years. I know you guys and girls don't know you have the solution as well. However, we can't alienate those anglers out there that are maybe uneducated or just don't know any better. Work to politely educate people. Don't cause a fight. Don't make it a stressful scenario. That's not your job, nor does it usually work. But take some time if you see someone pushing the envelope there and just politely educate them of what they're doing. And then if they don't stop and you see it repeated, then do report them. However, I want to be careful on that because DFO very commonly shuts down entire fisheries because of this practice. So I think it's better if we handle it within ourselves, politely, respectively, and educate anyone you see with the 14-foot leader and an obvious attempt to snag these fish. We just can't have that if we want to continue fishing on these beautiful rivers. So hopefully we will see more people listen to that and take note, and hopefully DFO won't be forced to close portions of the river like they have in the past. Folks are float fishing, short leaders. As we've seen in the last few years, your standard soft bead is extremely effective, though the old timers are running roe, and that historically has been the winner. So definitely have both in your kit as you're heading out for the early season Chinook. Now let's talk coho fishing. Let's talk Chinook fishing, because we can actually target them now. If you head across the strait, basically north of Thrasher Rock, right across the strait actually, I'll put the map up here, you can see it, we're allowed to target Chinook in a very specific slot limit. I want you guys to educate yourself that, mark it out on your ruler so you know where they fall, but you can target them, and that's awesome. We're excited about that. I hope you can get out, and the fishing has been excellent. Coho, on the other hand, has been phenomenal, and we've actually had a number of anglers pulling on them in very unconventional ways, which is kind of fun when there's a lot of them around. And so we are seeing the bucktail actually work. You know, we were talking about earlier, thinking that this year would be the year that we could do that locally. Well, you can absolutely do it. No, you're not going to catch quite as many as running hoochies on the downrigger. However, if you want something fun, a light mooching weight and a spoon is very productive, and then ultimately the fly rod with the clevis spinner and the bucktail off the back. Started getting them this last week when our guides could dial in exactly where they were. So definitely get out there, enjoy that. If you need tips on what to use, how to run, the simple ones are go faster, go shallower, but watch where the bait is and try to be where that bait is, and cover ground. If you find them, keep on that area, but if you're not finding them, cover ground, look for bait, look for tide lines out in the middle of nowhere, and the fishing can be absolutely phenomenal. So get out and enjoy it. Come down to the shop if you need help on either targeting Chinooks across the strait or targeting the coho locally. Now, many of you I know are tuned in because you're river anglers. I got to go out last weekend for 4 days of absolutely excellent fishing. It was kind of like visiting an old friend, and it felt really good. Now, that old friend had changed a little bit. Not a lot. There's some river shifts. If anyone's thinking about drifting on any of the rivers, give us a call just to be safe. We might have some intel there for you. And the bottom line was the Skagit, at least, was excellent. It's a little high. As of last weekend, it was a little challenging to cross, but very doable if you knew how to wade. And it is coming down. So I expect this weekend into next week to get to that easy wading level where anyone who has a wading staff and is safe can get across where they need to from point to point to really cover out some ground. I was with a friend, and he's a really good angler as well, and he said all I want to do is dry fly fish, and he fished the dry fly, and I came in behind him with other techniques. Sometimes it was a dry fly because I love seeing the fish come up to it, but I fish nymphs and I fish streamers, and there were lots of fish to be had. The go-to dry flies were our classic gray parachute style patterns, reasonably small in the morning, and then switching to much larger. I call them gray wolves, but they're probably imitating the green drake mayflies that come off on the Skagit. And it's a big, very enticing piece of food for the trout, and they can't seem to resist it, midday to afternoon, depending on where you're at. I'll show some pictures up here if you're heading out, if you're new to it, some things to try. The tricks are simple. Cover ground, cover ground, cover ground. When you find fish, be back on those fish when a hatch is happening or later in the evening when things seem to pick up. Thompson, I got some funny reports from the Thompson. I got this picture from a friend on the Thompson. Thanks for sending it in, Sean. But yes, a fish being eaten by a huge snake. Ironically, I've actually seen this before. This guy's actually sent me pictures of this before, and I've seen it when I'm up there. But the Thompson is still a little high if you're walk and wading. If you're drifting, it's very, very doable, but it's a little bit high for the walk and wade guys. I'd give it another week or so if you're thinking about walk and wading the fishery. But if you are drifting, it's go time now, and the fishing was good. Just knowing that some of the slicks are not quite defined right now on the water level we're seeing. That's the reports from the weekend, so it should be good, and I hope everybody can get out. I promised it to be short. I was kind of short, but check out the written version because Jordan's got a really cool flag that he's tied. It's a rendition of the gurgler, and we're going to be using it for coho this season locally, hopefully, but it's definitely a go-to if you're getting a little bit farther afield where the fish are less pressured, and it's an excellent topwater bait for actually rockfish of all things, and in an itsy-bitsy size, it's one of my go-to cutthroat patterns. So check that out in the written report, as well as Jay's update on saltwater. Eric's got an update on the Capilano and the beach fishing, and Taylor's got the Chilliwack covered for us in that report. So as always, you want to see more reports like this, consider hitting the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to catch you in 2 weeks.